Not the gentle silence of a quiet morning, or the peaceful silence of a snowfall, but the heavy, humming silence of a room filled with too many machines. The camera moves slowly across a wall of screens, each one displaying a different graph, a different metric, a different problem that has been neatly solved. A man in his late 40s, whose name we never learn, sits in the center of this command center, and he is smiling. It is the smile of someone who has just finished a marathon, exhausted, but victorious. He leans back in his chair, the leather creaking under his weight, and he runs a hand over his face, wiping away the last traces of tension. Outside the window behind him, a city glitters in the pre-dawn darkness. A city he has, in his own small way, just saved. For the last 18 months, this man, let's call him David, has been leading a team of engineers to solve a problem that had plagued the city's infrastructure for a decade. The old water purification system was failing, a labyrinth of corroding pipes and outdated software that was leaking contaminants into the supply on a weekly basis. It was the kind of invisible crisis that never makes the front page until it's too late, a slow poison that the city had learned to ignore. But David didn't ignore it. He saw the problem with the clarity of a mathematician, a set of variables that needed to be balanced, a system that needed to be optimized. He'd worked through holidays, through marriage counseling sessions he eventually stopped attending, through the quiet disappointment in his daughter's eyes when he missed her school play. He told himself it was worth it. Because now, at 4:47 in the morning, the final test was complete. The new system was online. The alarms were silent. The water was clean. He pours himself a glass from the tap in his office kitchenette, a ritual he's been waiting to perform for months. He holds the glass up to the dim light, watching the clarity of it, the absolute absence of threat. He drinks, and it tastes like victory. It tastes like cold, clean nothing. He picks up his phone, scrolling through a thread of messages from his team, all of them celebrating, all of them exhausted, all of them believing they have just done something pure. They fixed the broken thing. They made it whole. The sense of completion is so profound it's almost narcotic. David allows himself one moment of pure, uncomplicated pride. He texts his wife, *it's done. I'll be home soon, *. She doesn't reply, which is a problem he files away for later. There's always a later. The camera drifts away from David, moving through the walls of his control room as if passing through a membrane, and we find ourselves in the city itself, just as the first pale fingers of dawn begin to curl around the skyscrapers. We see a street sweeper making its rounds, the rhythmic hiss of water against asphalt. We see a man in a small apartment filling a kettle from the tap, the same water David just drank. He flicks the switch, waiting for the familiar rumble, and goes about his morning routine: a toothbrush, toothpaste, a quick glance at his phone. He doesn't know David's name. He doesn't know about the 18 months of sacrifice, the corroding pipes, the clean test results. All he knows is the ritual. The kettle clicks off, and he pours the steaming water over a tea bag, watching the dark amber seep into the liquid. It looks right. It smells right. He takes a sip, and for a moment, it's just tea. But then, there's something else. A faint, almost imperceptible chemical aftertaste that wasn't there yesterday. A tightness in his throat that he dismisses as seasonal allergies. He shrugs it off, drinks the rest, and heads out into the morning. He's got a train to catch. He's got a life to live. But the story isn't about David anymore, and it's not about this man. It's about the ghost that lives in the space between solutions. Because what David didn't know, what his team of brilliant, exhausted engineers didn't account for in their final triumphant test, was that the new purification system, the one that solved the old problem with such elegant finality, had introduced a new variable into the equation. The software that now regulated the water flow was designed to be more efficient, to use less energy, to distribute pressure more evenly across the ancient network. And in doing so, it changed the pressure dynamics in a single, specific, mile-long stretch of pipe that had been laid in 1953, a pipe that had been held together for decades by the very inconsistency the new system had just eliminated. The old pressure, the chaotic, inefficient, human pressure of the previous system, had been keeping a seal intact through sheer brute force. The new system, so clean, so optimized, so perfectly solved, eased that pressure just enough. Just enough for a microscopic crack to begin. Not a dramatic burst, not a geyser of water erupting through the pavement, just a slow, patient seep into the earth, into the foundation of a building that housed a small data center for one of the city's largest banks. We don't see this happen. We don't see the water finding its way through the old brick, following the path of least resistance like a patient creature looking for a way home. That's the nature of these kinds of problems. They don't announce themselves with fanfare. They don't arrive as crises. They arrive as consequences, wearing the quiet mask of normalcy. David arrives home as the sun is fully up, expecting to find his wife in the kitchen, expecting a conversation that will bridge the distance of the last year and a half. Instead, he finds the house empty, a single suitcase gone from the closet, a note on the counter that he reads 3 times before the words stop blurring. Asterisk, I can't wait anymore. I'm sorry, asterisk. He stands there in the kitchen, the same kitchen where he once taught his daughter to make pancakes, and he feels the victory of the morning curdle in his stomach. He solved the water problem. He fixed the system. He did the thing he was supposed to do. And yet, he is standing in an empty house, holding a piece of paper that tells him the life he thought he was saving has already slipped through his fingers. The water is clean. But the home is gone. He looks at the glass of water he poured for himself from the tap here, the same clean water, and it suddenly tastes like nothing at all. Not victory. Just emptiness. This is the first law of unintended consequences, the cruel joke at the heart of every solved problem. We are raised to believe that solutions are endpoints, that the act of fixing something creates a state of completion, a cleared plateau from which we can rest and survey our work. But the world doesn't work in endpoints. It works in chains. Every solution is not an ending, but a transformation. It's a stone dropped into a pond, and the ripples don't stop just because the stone has sunk. We spend so much time staring at the stone, congratulating ourselves on the precision of the toss, that we forget to look at the shore where the ripples are slowly, inevitably, eroding the bank. 2 weeks later, the data center in the basement of that old building is flooded. Not catastrophically, the water has been seeping for days, and by the time anyone notices, it's only a few inches deep. But a few inches is enough. Enough to short a backup generator, enough to cause a cascading failure in a system that was designed to handle every scenario except this one. The bank's online services go down for 6 hours. It makes the local news, a minor inconvenience for thousands of customers, a brief dip in stock price, a flurry of meetings for the bank's executives. They fix the problem quickly, of course. They hire a different team of engineers, not David's team, a different one, to trace the source of the water. They find the microscopic crack. They repair it. They solve their problem with the same efficiency, the same pride, the same blindness. And in doing so, they decide to reroute the bank's backup systems to a newer, more secure facility on the other side of the city. A logical solution. An efficient solution. A solution that solves the immediate problem so thoroughly that no one thinks to ask what new problem it might be creating somewhere else. The camera pulls back, and we begin to see the shape of something larger, a web of cause and effect that connects David's empty kitchen to a flooded basement, to a rerouted data stream, to a traffic light intersection that has been operating on outdated firmware for years. Because the new data center is on a power grid that was already near capacity, and the added strain of the bank's servers causes a voltage fluctuation that no one notices until 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, when that traffic light at the intersection of 5th and Main flickers for just a second. Just a second. Long enough for a delivery truck driver, running late on his route, to see the conflicting signals red and green at the same time, a moment of digital indecision, and make a choice. He hesitates. Then he goes. And a mother driving her son to soccer practice, who has her own set of problems, her own unsolved equations, her own exhaustion, doesn't see him until the world becomes a shriek of metal and glass. We don't linger on the accident. We don't need to. Because the point is not the tragedy itself, but the shape of its origin. If you trace the lines back, every single point along that chain was a solution. David solved the water crisis. The bank solved the flooding problem. The engineers solved the rerouting issue. Even the delivery driver, in his own way, solved the problem of being late. Each step was rational, each choice was justified, each person was trying to do the right thing, the efficient thing, the solving thing. And yet, the sum total of all these solutions was not a better world. It was a mother sitting in a hospital waiting room, staring at a wall, wondering how her Tuesday afternoon went so catastrophically wrong. This is the paradox we refuse to see, because to see it is to accept a kind of paralysis. We are creatures of problem solving. It's how we survived, how we built cities, how we reached across the void to touch the face of the moon with our machines. The drive to fix, to optimize, to close the gap between what is and what should be, is the engine of everything we call progress. But the engine has a shadow. And the shadow is the simple, terrifying truth that every solution is a kind of violence. It destroys the old equilibrium, the messy, imperfect, chaotic balance that was, at the very least, known. It replaces it with something new, something untested, something that will, in turn, create its own set of problems that we cannot yet see. We are not solving problems. We are trading them. And we rarely have the foresight to know if the trade was a good one. David doesn't know about the accident. He is sitting in a lawyer's office, signing papers that dissolve a marriage he still believes he can save. He signs his name with the same precision he used to sign off on the water system's final test, and when he looks up, the lawyer is handing him a new set of papers, a custody agreement, a division of assets, a new problem dressed in the language of a solution. He walks out into the afternoon sun, and for a moment, he doesn't know what to do with his hands. They feel useless without a problem to solve. He finds himself walking toward the water treatment facility, a place that was once the center of his universe, now just another building. He stands at the edge of the reservoir, watching the water move through the new system, clean and silent and oblivious. He solved it. He fixed it. And for the first time, he wonders if the water was ever the problem at all. The camera lingers on his reflection in the water, and then it begins to pull away, rising above the city, where we see the millions of lives being lived simultaneously, each one a knot of problems and solutions, each solution spawning a new knot in a place they will never think to look. The delivery driver, whose insurance rates will skyrocket, who will lie awake at night replaying that moment of hesitation, who will eventually lose his job because his route times can't compensate for the trauma that now lives in his reflexes. The bank executive who authorized the reroute, who will receive a promotion for his decisive handling of the data center crisis, who will never know that his success was built on a foundation of water and glass. The engineers who fixed the pipe, who will list the repair on their resumes as a triumph of efficiency, who will move on to the next project with the same clean confidence. And in a hospital room, a boy of 11 years old sits in a plastic chair, waiting for his mother to wake up. He doesn't know about water systems or data centers or pressure dynamics. He only knows that his mother went into the intersection and something came out of the corner of her eye, and now she is here, connected to machines that beep with a rhythm he doesn't understand. He has a problem. The problem is that his mother is hurt, and he doesn't know how to fix it. He will spend the next 20 years trying to solve that problem, becoming an emergency room doctor, dedicating his life to the idea that if he just learns enough, works hard enough, controls enough variables, he can prevent this moment from happening to anyone else. He will save hundreds of lives. He will be celebrated. He will stand in hospital corridors, victorious, the water clean, the systems optimized, the problems solved. And somewhere, in a city he's never visited, a new system will be installed, a new efficiency will be implemented, a new stone will be dropped into the water, and the ripples will begin again. This is the story we don't tell ourselves when we celebrate the triumph of human ingenuity. We love the moment of breakthrough, the flash of insight, the satisfying click of a problem solved. It's the narrative we crave, the hero who slays the dragon, the engineer who closes the loop, the doctor who beats the disease. But dragons don't die. They just change shape. They move from the cave to the village, from the village to the mind, from the mind to the machines we build to protect ourselves from the dragons we've already slain. The loop never closes. It only expands. David eventually leaves the reservoir. He walks through the city, and for the first time in 18 months, he isn't looking at it as a system to be optimized. He's looking at it as a place where people live. He sees the delivery trucks, the pedestrians, the traffic lights, the steam rising from manhole covers. He sees the chaos he had tried so hard to eliminate, and he realizes, with a feeling that is equal parts dread and relief, that the chaos is not a flaw in the design. The chaos is the design. The city was never a machine. It was a forest. And you don't solve a forest. You live inside it, and you learn to see the connections that run beneath the soil, the roots that tie every tree to every other tree, the mycelial network of cause and effect that means you cannot touch one thing without touching everything. He pulls out his phone and looks at the text he sent to his wife *, it's done. I'll be home soon *, and he realizes that it was never done. It's never done. The water is clean, but the home is empty. The problem was never the pipes. The problem was the assumption that the pipes were the only thing that mattered. He pockets the phone and keeps walking, and for the first time in his adult life, he doesn't look for a problem to solve. He just looks. He watches a pigeon land on a windowsill. He watches a teenager skateboard down a sidewalk, nearly colliding with a woman carrying groceries, the two of them laughing, adjusting, continuing on. He watches the world solve itself 1,000 times a minute, not through grand engineering feats, but through the constant, messy, beautiful negotiation of people making do, making room, making peace with the fact that the solution is never the end. But David's realization is a small thing, a single stone in a pond that is already filled with stones. Because the machine of solutions doesn't stop just because one man decides to stop building it. Across the city, in a dozen offices, in 100 meetings, the work continues. The water is clean, but now the energy grid is showing new strain. The traffic light has been repaired, but the intersection is now being studied for a smart upgrade that will solve the problem of human error by removing the human entirely. The bank's new data center is stable, but the old building is being sold to a developer who plans to build luxury condos, which will bring new residents, which will require more water, more power, more solutions. Each solution is a seed. Each seed is a new problem, waiting to grow. The camera rises higher still, until the city becomes a constellation of light against the dark earth, and we see that every light is a solved problem, and every solved problem is a question we haven't learned to ask yet. We are Prometheus on the mountainside, but the eagle is not a punishment from the gods. The eagle is us. We are the ones who keep returning to the problem, pecking at it, reshaping it, believing that this time, we will find the final answer. But the liver grows back. It always grows back. Because the problem was never the liver. The problem was the assumption that there was ever a final solution to a living thing. We cut back to the boy in the hospital room. His mother's eyes are open now. She's groggy, confused, but she's awake. He takes her hand, and she squeezes it, and for a moment, the problem is solved. His mother is alive. His mother is here. He leans his head against the bed, and he lets out a breath he's been holding for hours. And in that moment, he makes a vow to himself, a silent promise that he will spend his life making sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. He doesn't know that this vow will lead him to medical school, to long nights, to a marriage that will fray under the weight of his dedication, to a career of saving strangers while the people closest to him learn to live without him. He doesn't know that his solution will become a problem for someone else, just as someone else's solution became a problem for his mother. He only knows the relief of the moment, the sweet, temporary peace of a problem, for now, solved. And that's the deeper truth, isn't it? The one we can't look at for too long without going a little mad. We have to believe in solutions. We have to believe that we can fix the broken thing, that we can close the loop, that we can build a system that will finally hold. Because if we don't believe that, then what are we doing? What are any of us doing, waking up in the morning, trying to make things better, if we know that better is just a different kind of broken? We keep solving because we have to. Because the alternative is to sit in the chaos, to accept that the problems will never end, to give up on the very idea of improvement. And that's not a place a human being can live for very long. So we solve. We build. We optimize. We pour clean water into glasses and drink it, and we tell ourselves that the taste is victory. And we are not wrong. It is victory. It is also the beginning of something else. Something we won't see until we are standing in an empty kitchen, or a hospital waiting room, or the intersection where a decision we made years ago is finally arriving, wearing the face of a Tuesday afternoon. David stops walking. He's in front of a small park he's never noticed before, a sliver of green between two buildings, where a few children are playing on a rusty jungle gym. He watches them for a long time. They are solving their own small problems: who gets the swing, how to build a fort out of sticks, how to negotiate the fragile peace of childhood. They don't know that the water they drink at home is cleaner than it was yesterday. They don't know about the flooded data center or the traffic light or the mother in the hospital. They only know the problem in front of them, the solution they can reach with their hands. David sits on a bench, and for the first time in his life, he doesn't try to fix anything. He just watches the children play, and he wonders what new problems they will inherit from the solutions he has spent his life building. He wonders if they will ever know that the world they are growing up in was shaped by people who were trying to help, who were doing their best, who were so focused on the stone in their hand that they never saw the ripples spreading toward the shore. The sun begins to set, and the city lights flicker on, one by one. Each light is a solved problem. Each light is a new one, waiting in the dark. David sits on the bench until the children go home, until the park empties out, until the only sound is the distant hum of traffic and the closer, quieter sound of his own breathing. He doesn't have the answers. He's not sure he even has the questions anymore. But he has this moment, this bench, this city that is not a machine but a forest, growing in ways no one can predict. And for now, that is enough. For now, he doesn't reach for the solution. He just lets the problem be, and in that letting, finds something that feels, for a moment, like peace. But peace, like victory, is temporary. And somewhere in the city, a new problem is already taking shape. A new solution is being designed in a conference room, a new variable is being added to the equation, a new stone is being lifted from the shore. The ripples are already moving. They always are. The only question is where they will land, and whose life they will change, and whether we will ever learn to see them coming before it's too late to do anything but hold on and wait for the water to settle, knowing that it never really settles, that it only looks calm on the surface, that underneath, the currents are always moving, always connecting, always turning one person's victory into another person's beginning, or middle, or end. The light in the park has changed now, shifting from the gold of sunset into the deep blue twilight that seems to exist in the space between worlds, between day and night, between the problems we can see and the ones that are still hidden beneath the surface. David doesn't move from the bench. He has become part of the park's stillness, a figure so motionless that a squirrel approaches within a few feet, considers him, and decides he is just another piece of the landscape. He watches the squirrel dig for something in the grass, a nut buried weeks ago, a solution to a problem of winter scarcity that the animal has long since forgotten. The squirrel digs for a while, then stops, distracted by something David cannot see, and darts away into the growing darkness. The nut stays in the ground. The problem remains unsolved. And the world does not end. This is the second law of unintended consequences, the one we understand in our bones but refuse to put into words. Most problems do not need to be solved. Or rather, most problems solve themselves, or are rendered irrelevant by the passage of time, or were never really problems in the first place, only the appearance of problems, the shape of them and the half-light of our anxiety. The squirrel will not starve. The nut will either be found later or it will become a tree, or it will rot and feed the soil, and either way, the forest continues. But we are not squirrels. We are the species that cannot leave the nut in the ground. We see the buried thing and we must dig it up, must examine it, must categorize it, must find the solution that will finally, permanently, once and for all deal with the nut. And in our digging, we tear up the grass, we disturb the soil, we create a hole that becomes a hazard for the next creature that passes through. We solve the nut, and in solving it, we create 100 new problems we will never see, because we have already moved on to the next nut, the next project, the next emergency that we will turn into a solution that will turn into another emergency somewhere down the line. The camera begins to move through the city, not with the speed of a drone or the efficiency of a surveillance system, but with the slow, patient curiosity of someone who has finally stopped trying to fix things and has started, instead, to simply look. We pass through neighborhoods David has never visited, past buildings he has never entered, into lives that exist in the blind spots of his attention. In a basement apartment 3 blocks from the park, a young woman named Elena is staring at her laptop screen, watching a cursor blink in an empty document. She has a problem. The problem is rent, which is due in 4 days, and a freelance article she was supposed to finish a week ago, and a migraine that has been building behind her eyes since noon. She has tried everything she knows to solve these problems: caffeine, cold compresses, the desperate hope that words will suddenly appear if she just stares long enough. Nothing works. So she does the thing that humans do when the solutions fail. She opens a different window, a social media feed, a stream of other people's solved problems, other people's victories, other people's clean water and functioning marriages and children who make them proud. She scrolls, and the scrolling is its own kind of solution, a way of solving the unbearable problem of her own life by disappearing into the lives of strangers. She doesn't know that her problem, the rent, the article, the migraine, is connected to David's problem, to the boy in the hospital, to the delivery driver, to the bank executive, to the 1,000 invisible threads that tie her basement apartment to the water treatment facility and the traffic light in the flooded data center. She only knows that the cursor is still blinking, and her head is still pounding, and the solutions she has been taught to reach for are all failing her. In another part of the city, a man named Marcus is standing in his garage, staring at a bicycle he has taken apart for the third time. The bicycle is his problem. It is also his solution. He has been unemployed for 7 months, ever since the warehouse where he worked for 15 years closed down, a casualty of the same efficiency protocols that cleaned David's water and rerouted the bank's data. The warehouse was inefficient. It was old, it was slow, it was staffed by people who knew each other's children's names and brought each other soup when someone was sick. It was a problem that needed solving. And so it was solved. The building was sold, the land was redeveloped, and Marcus was given a severance package and a pamphlet about retraining programs and a handshake that lasted exactly as long as it needed to. He has been fixing bicycles ever since, because fixing bicycles is something he can do, something that has a beginning and a middle and an end, something that does not create new problems the moment it is finished. He puts the chain back on, adjusts the brakes, spins the wheel, and for a moment, the bicycle is solved. It works. It is whole. He stands back, and he feels the satisfaction of a problem solved, and he knows it is a small satisfaction, a tiny victory that will not pay his mortgage or bring back the warehouse or explain to his daughter why he can't afford to send her on the school trip to the science museum. But it is a victory, and he holds it in his hands, and for now, that is enough. What Marcus does not know, what he cannot know, is that the bicycle he has just fixed belongs to a woman who will ride it to work tomorrow morning, through the intersection where the traffic light was replaced, past the park where David is still sitting on the bench, past the hospital where the boy is holding his mother's hand. She will ride it because she cannot afford the bus fare anymore, because her hours at the cafe have been cut, because the cafe itself is struggling, because the new water system required a rate increase that the city passed on to small businesses, because the landlord raised the rent to cover the increase, because the owner of the cafe had to let someone go, and she was the one with the fewest hours, the one without seniority, the one who was most expendable. She does not know any of this. She only knows that her hours have been cut, and the bus is too expensive, and the bicycle Marcus fixed for her, fixing it in exchange for a meal, because he knows what it is to be without, is now her only way to get to work. She will ride it, and the ride will be hard, and she will arrive at the cafe sweating and tired, and she will make coffee for people who do not see her, and she will come home, and she will scroll through her own feed, and she will wonder why her life feels so difficult when everyone else's seems so solved. The camera finds its way back to David, still on the bench, and we see that his phone is in his hand now. He has been staring at it for a long time. The screen shows a text thread with his daughter, a conversation that has been mostly one-sided for months, his messages full of apologies and promises and explanations, her replies reduced to single words, to the silence that grows between people who used to know each other. He types something, deletes it, types something else, deletes it again. He is trying to solve the problem of his daughter, to find the right combination of words that will undo the 18 months of absence, the missed play, the forgotten parent-teacher conference, the birthday he spent in the control room while she blew out candles without him. He wants a solution. He wants a sentence that will make everything right, that will close the loop, that will bring her back to him the way he brought clean water to the city. But there is no sentence. There is no solution. There is only the long, slow, patient work of being present, of showing up, of accepting that the problem of a broken relationship cannot be solved, only lived through, only tended to, only allowed to heal in its own time, if it heals at all. He puts the phone away. He stands up from the bench, and for a moment, he does not know where to go. The control room is empty. The house is empty. The problems he spent 18 months solving have been replaced by new problems he does not know how to begin to solve. He starts walking, not toward anything, just walking, and the city moves around him with the rhythm of a place that has never stopped to ask whether it is solving anything or merely becoming something else. He passes a man selling flowers from a cart, the flowers arranged in buckets of water that came from the new system, clean and clear and utterly unaware of the journey they have taken. He passes a group of teenagers laughing at something on a phone, their faces lit by the screen, their problems still small enough to be solved by a joke or a shared glance. He passes a woman sitting on a stoop, talking to an older man who is probably her father, the two of them speaking a language David does not recognize, their voices rising and falling in the cadence of a conversation that has been going on for years, that will go on for years more, that has no single problem to solve but is itself the solution to the larger problem of loneliness, of isolation, of the human need to be seen and heard and known. And this is the third law, the one that offers something like hope if we are brave enough to look at it. The chain of problems and solutions, the endless cycle of fixing and breaking and fixing again, is not a trap. It is not a punishment. It is the texture of being alive. The mistake is not in solving problems. The mistake is in believing that problems are things to be eliminated rather than things to be lived with. We are not machines that can be optimized. We are forests, and forests grow through disturbance, through fire and flood and the slow decay of fallen trees, through the constant, chaotic interplay of forces that cannot be controlled, only witnessed, only participated in, only loved for what they are rather than what we wish they could be. David stops in front of a building he has never seen before, a small community center tucked between a laundromat and a bodega. There is a sign in the window, hand-painted in bright colors, advertising free English classes, a food pantry, a meeting for parents whose children are struggling in school. He stands there for a long time, reading the sign, and he thinks about the parents who will come to that meeting, bringing their unsolved problems, their children who cannot read, their children who cannot sit still, their children who are falling behind in a system that was designed to solve the problem of education but has instead created new problems for the children who do not fit the design. He thinks about the teachers who will attend that meeting, who are themselves caught in a system of problems and solutions, of standardized tests and curriculum changes and budget cuts, each new solution creating new challenges that will require new solutions, on, the wheel turning, the forest growing. He thinks about his own daughter, about the parent-teacher conferences he missed, about the school play he never saw, about the math homework he was too tired to help with because he was too busy solving problems that seemed, in that moment, so much more important than a child's multiplication tables. He thinks about the message he just deleted, and the one before that, and the one before that, and he realizes that he has been treating his daughter the way he treated the water system, as a problem to be solved, a variable to be optimized, a thing to be fixed with the right input, the right formula, the right sequence of events. But she is not a problem. She never was. She is a forest, growing in ways he cannot predict or control, and his job is not to solve her but to be present for her, to witness her growth, to accept the chaos of her becoming without trying to make it something else. He pulls out his phone again, and this time, he does not try to find the perfect words. He types something simple, something he has never said to her before, something that is not a solution to anything but is, perhaps, the only thing that has ever been true, *I don't know how to fix this. But I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I love you *, he sends it before he can delete it, and he puts the phone away, and he stands there on the sidewalk, in the city that he thought he had saved, and he waits. He does not know if she will reply. He does not know if this is the beginning of something or the end of something or just another moment in the long, unbroken chain of moments that make up a life. He only knows that he has stopped trying to solve, and has started, instead, to simply be. The phone buzzes. He looks at it, and for a moment, he is afraid to open it, afraid of what it might say, afraid of the silence that might be waiting on the other side of the screen. But he opens it anyway, and he sees three words that are not a solution, that do not fix anything, that do not close any loops or solve any problems. 3 words that are, perhaps, the only thing that has ever mattered. I love you too. He reads them 3 times, and then he reads them again, and he does not try to solve anything. He just lets the words be what they are, a small light in the darkness, a single thread in the vast web of problems and solutions that connects him to her, and her to the world, and the world to everything that has come before and everything that will come after. The camera holds on David's face, illuminated by the distant lights of the city, and we see something in his expression that has not been there before. Not peace, exactly, peace is too simple a word for what he is feeling. It is something closer to acceptance, to the recognition that the problems will never end, that the solutions will always create new problems, that the cycle is not a failure of the system but the system itself. And in that recognition, there is a kind of freedom. The freedom to stop trying to close the loop, to stop waiting for the moment when everything is finally solved, to stop measuring his life by the problems he has eliminated and start measuring it by the moments he has lived, the connections he has made, the love he has given and received in the brief, precious time he has been given. He closes his eyes, and the city continues without him, as it always has, as it always will. The water flows through the pipes, the traffic lights cycle through their patterns, the bicycles roll down the streets, the children sleep in their beds, the problems multiply and the solutions multiply, and the web grows denser and more complex with every passing moment. And somewhere in that web, a father and a daughter are separated by a city and a silence that has lasted too long, but there is a message now, a small thread of connection, 3 words that are not a solution but are something perhaps more important, a beginning. A recognition. A door, not closed but opened, not solved but simply there, waiting for someone to walk through. David's phone buzzes again, and he opens his eyes, and he looks at the screen, and he sees another message from his daughter, longer this time, words spilling out, words about her day, her friends, the math she is struggling with, the teacher who doesn't understand, the small, ordinary problems of a girl who is becoming a woman in a city that is becoming something else every day. He reads the words, and he does not try to solve anything. He does not offer advice or solutions or the wisdom of his years. He writes back, simply, "Tell me more," and she does. She tells him about the boy who sits next to her in history class, about the song she can't stop listening to, about the dream she had last night that she is still trying to understand. He reads each message, and he responds to each one, not as an engineer solving a problem but as a father listening to his daughter, as a human being reaching out to another human being across the impossible distance that separates us all, a distance that can never be solved, only bridged, moment by moment, word by word, breath by breath. The camera pulls back slowly, through the window, into the night air, above the rooftops, above the city that is sleeping and waking and dreaming itself into being, and we see the lights flickering, the water flowing, the bicycles waiting, the problems gathering and dispersing like clouds across a sky that has no edge, no end, no final solution. And we understand, finally, that the story is not about David or Elena or Marcus or the boy in the hospital. The story is about all of us, caught in the web, solving and breaking and solving again, trying to close the loops that will never close, trying to find the peace that comes not from the end of problems but from the acceptance of them, from the recognition that we are not the solvers of the world but the participants in it, the forest growing, the water flowing, the light flickering in the darkness, always flickering, always there, always enough.